should probably start with the notion of where this show that you love came from. What was its evolution, the concept that started, etc.
The genesis of this show.
The genesis of the show is really simple. It's Henry Brownell and I were doing Brotherhood in 2006, and both our mothers were actually Jungian therapists. And so the idea of collective unconscious was all sort of kicking around in both our heads. And Henry once pitched me, the idea of, what if our dreams are actually an expression of a Jungian collective unconscious? And I thought that was really cool. And then at my bachelor dinner when I was getting married, I was really drunk. And Henry was sitting next to a friend of mine. I said, tell him about that idea. And he said, well, what if our dreams were really all connected? And I said, Henry, that's a show. We should make that a show. And in 2008, during the writer's strike, we were bored. And so we wrote the pilot that you just saw, and it was bonkers, and we didn't know what it was, we didn't know what to do with it, and so we worked on other things, we worked on the last season of Brotherhood. He went off and did Rubicon and then Homeland, and I went off and shot Two Guns and Law & Order LA, but we had this script that we loved. And then I had a meeting with Gail Ann Hurd, and, she pitched me a book, which I passed on, and she said, what do you have? And I said, well, I got this crazy script, and she read it, and she fell in love and says, I want to be involved in this project. She came on board, and she had a couple of small notes for us, and Henry and I sat down on like a Wednesday and had lunch and figured out how to do all the notes in about 3 minutes, because that's the way we worked. And we were going to get together Monday to discuss how we're going to divvy up the work, and his wife emailed me Monday morning saying Henry was under the weather and he couldn't do the call. And I got a call that night that he had passed away from an aortic rupture. And I didn't touch the script for a year. And a year later, I had to do it. I had to finish it. I finished it, went back to Gail and said, I want to do this show. Gail said, this is terrific, let's get a director on board. And first person we really went to was Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, whose work on Intacto I just thought was spectacular. And he and I sat down and we talked about the show a little bit, and he said, let me send you some images. And he sent me a PDF of about 60 images. He said, I think this is what the show is. What are your notes? And I wrote back, I said, I got one note. Yes. Juan instinctively understood what the show should look like, what it should feel like. He was a tremendous collaborator. And then we went out and we sold it to USA, who was looking, to move more in the sort of direction of different and weird and new and special. And here we are.
So for people who aren't at the con and didn't have the opportunity to watch it, can you describe for them what is this vibe that you're going for? What's it going to feel like in the first season?
Well, I think you got to start with the premise, if I'm assuming for people who haven't seen it before. And the premise is really simple. And again, we're not trying to keep secrets from the audience. We're going to answer all your questions within the first, 6 to 9 episodes. The premise is, what if all of our individual dreams are like tiles in one grand mosaic we're all dreaming together? Only most of us can't see beyond the boundaries of our little tile. Well, what if there are certain people who could wander out of their tile and into your tile? Have you ever had a bad dream that one day you woke up and you were in a bad mood because you had a bad dream? Or you woke up in a good mood because you had a good dream? Well, imagine you could wander into somebody's dream and make it bad or good. So within that premise, which is a little David Lynchian, I would say, it's really inspired a lot by Haruki Murakami's Japanese novelist I love, and also by, all the surrealists ever. The vibe of the show is 3 people on a quest in a world where their dreams are actually where half the drama takes place. Normally dreams are this other Greek chorus. In our world, a scene that happens in a dream, a fight between a girlfriend and a boyfriend in a dream, is just as much of the dramatic structure as them having breakfast the next morning. So the idea is that the landscape of dreaming and waking are almost like a Venn diagram. And the problem for our characters is they begin to cross over and get confusing in the middle. So the vibe, it's slow immersion into this weird, different world you want to be a part of.
Will you go into how the different dreams intersect?
Yes, but we're going to do it in a way that's, we're going to take our time. We want audiences to really get invested really in the emotional journeys of these 3 characters. And there will be points early in the season where they cross over but don't quite realize it. But in the end, by the end of the year, their actions in their dreams are all intersecting and interacting. And we're not going to rush it. What we want to do is we want the audience to really sort of follow naturally, organically, how these 3 people come together and how their 3 individual It's how their 3 individual quests, Tessa's quest to find her son, Taka's quest to somehow heal his mother, and Burton's quest to figure out what happened to the woman in red, for all of those 3 things to come together.
Will the quest then have something to do with humanity, saving humanity, or some larger?
Oh, we're not going to do Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. No. That's not our bag, baby. But I do think that the stakes will be high, and we will get a sense that there are larger forces at play. I think one of the dangers of a show like this is if you make it about saving the world in the first season, what do you do in the second season? I think really what the show always needs to be is grounded in the emotional truth of these people. I mean, it's no accident that the shows Henry and I idolized and he worked on and that I worked on, you know, we come out of the school of Josh Brandon, David Chase, and David Simon, and that kind of thing. And our goal with the show, in a way, is to do that style premium cable character drama with this genre-heightened element. You know, it's a personal thing of mine, is I think, like, we've seen the best Breaking Bad there's ever going to be. We've seen the best Mad Men there's ever going to be. But that premium cable, character-driven idea is still there. It just needs a new evolution. And the evolution is to take it to a place that is, for lack of a better word, has a little bit of magic in it. I mean, that's why I think Game of Thrones resonates. It's what I think we do, is we're taking something that feels grounded and character-driven and real and very cinematic also. That's the understated thing about all the shows, is they're incredibly cinematic. And our goal is to go create the next evolution of that family of shows, where you add in a little Fellini. You add in, you know, that idea of the surreal on top of that. Again, other, magical realism, whatever you want to call it. It's just, it's real, grounded people having a surreal experience.
How many episodes is the first season?
10. Yeah, we're just shooting the 8th and 9th now. What else?
Is there any concern of it being too surreal for a mainstream audience? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have to pull yourselves back from saying, okay, this is getting a little too weird even for people to...
Well, I think I don't have that worry, but that partly goes to process. I mean, I understand where the question comes from, which is, in episodes 2 and 3, we have to make the audience trust us. Right. We have to establish a clear grammar for the audience of, these are the shots and the style of shots we use in a dream. This is what we're using when we're doing somebody awake. So that they understand the style of dreaming and waking, so that in later episodes we can blur them more because the audience is fluent in the grammar of the show. We are not a show that does a lot of yak, let me explain now my internal monologue or the mechanics of this or that. The goal is to slowly, after the cold bath of the pilot, to essentially immerse the audience in the idea of, watch, person falling asleep, a person having a dream experience, that dream experience then resonating in their waking life, and slowly, step by step, doing that. And at a certain point, the audience has that. They've been to that circuit. So then you go to the next step, and things get a little weirder. And things start crossing over between dreams, or the line between dreaming and waking can get a little fuzzy if, say, you've been up for 3 days. But you have to do it organically, you have to do it slowly, you have to do it in a way that the audience doesn't get confused. Again, the goal is never to trick the audience in this show. We will never do the scene where, oh, somebody's walking down the hall, bang, 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 they're shot in the chest, they fall over, and then they wake up from a dream. That's not our show. We're never going to play that trick on the audience. We don't do that. That's not our grammar. We want you to know it's a dream, it's awake, unless we're playing those spaces where it's both. But we're not going to do that until after you clearly understand the grammar.
Will the characters have any paranormal abilities of any kind?
There are other shows that do that better. I think what I would say about it is that since all our dreams are really all one dream, people who are good dreamers and are sensitive in that way, they can feel things in the collective unconscious. Like in the pilot, Tess is a trend spotter. She's, you know, that person who can decide, you know, everybody's going to wear that color green sneakers next year. How does she do it? Well, in a way, she's almost leaning against the barrier between the waking and dreaming world and kind of feeling what's back there and going, oh, right, that's what it is. So in a way, what they're in touch with is our collective unconscious. They're not, nobody's going to have flames shoot out of their eyes or any of that stuff. There are shows that do that brilliantly. That's not our show. You know, we travel a little bit more in David Lynch than we do in Stan Lee.
But you said earlier that if you make it a global thing, save the cheerleader, save the world, where do you go in season 2? Well, that's the question then. Does it always stay focused on just these 3 people? Or if, let's say, the show goes a second, a third, or fourth season, does the scope then start expanding out?
I think what you'll find if we get a second, third, you know, season, By necessity, your focus expands. You build out a world, and I think you'll find that any world that you'll find ancillary characters you're interested in, and you'll travel with them. For the purposes of the first season, because it is only 10 episodes, and it's very, 10 is not a lot of episodes. It's not a lot of road. We focus on these three people and what this journey of discovering their dreams, talking to them, discovering the idea of our dreams being connected, how it affects these three people. But the people around them are also affected by it, and we create a landscape, and then season 2, we can add those people into the landscape. Because it's not a show about the world's going to blow up on Saturday the 14th,
Right.
it's easy to say, okay, this episode we're actually going to break pattern and go with this person, or this person's story is really interesting, let's make them part of it. So yeah, I think over time we will expand the number of people in our universe. But with only 10 episodes to do, I think the really important thing is to hang with our three leads, each of whom in their own way is just really compelling on screen.
Will the characters have a complex backstory, or will you start at the present?
Oh, whatever backstory they have, we're not going backwards. We're not doing flashbacks. We do a thing where usually our cold openings are in some sense a hint of something that is away from our three people, so we break perspective with our cold openings on purpose. The metaphor for the show I've always used is, imagine our three characters are sitting around a campfire in a dark forest, and slowly the light from that campfire spreads out and you see more and more and more of the forest. That's their journey. But occasionally in our cold openings, we'll drop a pin spot here and a pin spot there, and you'll see sort of things that are reflective of what happens in the same campfire and gives you understanding, or opens a new mystery. It's a bit more like how Breaking Bad would have those openings. But it's, yeah. So we're going to focus on our three leads at the beginning because they're great and I'm interested in them, and they have really interesting things happen to them.
Why these actors? I mean, the three actors, what was it about them?
They're all dreamers. It's actually one of the funnier things that happened in auditions is Juan and I were sitting through audition after audition after audition, and we could tell within 5 seconds, and we sort of like, there were some people we liked and some people who didn't. And we realized what we pinned down is there are certain people who are dreamers and certain people who aren't. There's just this weird natural vibe people give off. Are you a dreamer? And actors would come in, and there were great actors who came in whose work I loved, and we're like, no, they're not a dreamer. They all had that ability to make you feel that their dreams would be compelling and that they were connected with their dreams. I mean, in the case of Lizzie, who plays Tess, her audition consisted of her self-taping on vacation in a yurt somewhere in, I don't even know where. She self-taped one time, did one take of each of the two scenes, sent it to me, and I cast her off of that. I never met her, never called her back in, sent that tape to the network and said, this is the actress I want to cast as Tess. She was that perfect. She just was the character. David's character of Burton, that was not written to be black or British. It was kind of written to be Richard Burton a little bit, but by way of Humphrey Bogart. So somebody about 20 years older, probably white and American. David came in and was just so compelling that I was like, it's that guy. It's that guy, And with, Taka was originally written to be Asian, but sort of Will came in and had such a depth of humanity, such a warmth to him that he was just sort of undeniable. He was the guy.